Hi, welcome to News English class. I'm your instructor, Dr. Ye. This MOOCS aims at helping you previewing essential course materials prior to your attendance at the classroom. Please spend sufficient time getting yourself acquainted with the contents provided. In this episode of News English MOOCS, we will explore one of the pressing global issues of refugee crisis. It is hoped that this session will help you understand its urgency and stimulate a fuller view into this difficult humanitarian crisis. The content of this episode include the differentiations among refugee, asylum seeker, and immigrant, and an introduction to European refugee crisis. If you take the different terminologies of an immigrant, an asylum seeker, or a refugee at a glance, their definition differs. First, an immigrant is a person who migrates to another country out of his or her own will to seek permanent residence. An asylum seeker, on the other hand, is a displaced person who is forced to cross national borders without returning home safely. Once an asylum seeker formally makes a claim for asylum, and the contracting state or the UNHCR, in short for United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, grants the applicant a refugee status, he or she is then called a refugee. After the initial differentiation or different statuses, we may now move on to understand what refugee crisis entail. Refugee crisis refers to movement of large groups or displaced persons as refugees, asylum seekers, or other migrants. Reasons for refugee crisis vary. They may be caused by war or civil war, violations of human rights such as discrimination, marginalization, or inequality, environment and climate disasters, or economic hardship. The European migrant crisis or European refugee crisis began in 2015 because there is a rising number of refugees and migrants made the journey to the European Union to seek asylum. According to the UNHCR, among 1 million Mediterranean Sea arrivals between January 2015 and March 2016, the top three nationalities were Syrian, Afghan, and Iraq. Of the refugees and migrants arriving in Europe by sea in 2015, 15% were men, 70% were women, and 25% were children. The number of deaths at sea reached its peak in April 2015, when 5 boats carrying almost 2,000 migrants to Europe sank in the Mediterranean Sea. A death toll of more than 1,200 people was estimated. The context of the shipwrecks involved ongoing conflicts and refugee crisis. In 2014, Italy took in an upsurge of refugees in the number of sea arrivals from Libya. Then the first half of 2015, Greece overtook Italy as the first EU country of arrival. Then in the summer of 2015, Northern European countries, especially Germany and Sweden, received a flow of refugees and migrants moving from Balkan countries. As revealed earlier, Syrian refugees became the largest refugee group since 2014. Most Syrian refugees were hosted by neighboring countries in Turkey, Lebanon, and Jordan. With the influx of asylum seekers, the European Union has struggled to cope with the crisis since April 2015. Individual countries have at times introduced border controls within the Schengen area, and rifts emerged when some countries are willing to accept asylum seekers while others are not. The urgency of refugee crisis remains a huge problem, and for many countries, to open or not to open its border remains a very difficult decision. Since this remains a huge rift between polarized opinions, I would like you to do some research and put together the arguments for and against opening a nation's border to host refugees. Then, try to make your own statement if you agree with or disagree to have your nation host refugees, and please explain why. I hope this topic and the materials for this episode help you stay up to date with the current news and global crisis. Please remember to complete the online test for the session before the deadline. See you in class.